My name is Susan Hackley. I'm the producer and project director of A Child's Guide to War. This project will be a film, a television program, and an educational outreach effort, all designed to help us have better conversations about war in America. Conversations that include everybody: the soldiers, the veterans, our families and children, and people who have no connection to our wars. 99% of Americans have nobody in the service in their family, and for the less than 1% who serve, I think we need to know more about what they do and how we can support them. My son served in the military, in the Marine Corps, in the Iraq War, and I vowed when he came back that I wanted to do something to bring about better conversations about war. I saw the disconnect between people who had someone in the service and those who didn't, and it seemed really important to me that we all get to know each other a lot better and be supportive of different points of view.
I'm Diane Levin. I'm a professor of early childhood education at Wheelock College in Boston, Massachusetts. I've been working with teachers and social workers and others who work with children and families for many, many years, and my work has always focused on how various forces in society affect children.
Over 2 million of America's children have a parent who's been to war in Afghanistan or Iraq or both. And all of our children who are 13 and younger have only known a country that's been at war. So even if our children don't have a parent in the military, they are impacted by war. And it will be very healthy, I believe, for all of us to have a conversation about this so that our children can feel comfortable asking us questions. And so we can check in with them. What are their thoughts about war? Because, well, certainly they have them. Diane, I know you've worked for many years writing books and articles and even working with the U.S. military on presenting materials to help families of soldiers and veterans. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I wrote this book with two other people. It's the So Far Guide for helping children and youth cope with the deployment and return of a parent in the National Guard and other reserve components. It was to help parents and teachers deal with the deployment of a parent into the military and into a war zone when the child was living in a community where most of the families did not have anything to do with the war. Children growing up today, their whole lives, we've been at war. For them, it's just a normal part of everyday life if their parents aren't at war. And we don't talk about it much. We need to start thinking about what are they hearing, what meetings are they making, why don't we talk to them about it, how can we talk to them about it, what lessons can we help them learn, what lessons do we want them to learn. We, as the adults in society who are involved with children, have a really important role to play. As with all the other things we do in raising children, we think about what kinds of adults do we want to help create. And we need to begin doing that now more seriously.
So if you're a parent of a 10 or 12-year-old, and this parent might think, I don't want to talk about war with my child. It's an ugly world, and I want to shield my child from that. And later on, when they're older, then we can have these conversations.
Parents do want their children to feel safe and secure and to deal with positive things with them, but their children are hearing about it. And they hear about the real war, but also there's all the entertainment violence and war that they hear about. And their children at 12 often may be confused about what's the pretend part, what's the real part, but they've also learned that it's not something you talk to adults about. They don't talk to their parents about it. Usually schools don't talk about it. It's just something that maybe they talk about with their friends. When we think about it, children who are preschoolers and 4 and 5 and 6, their thinking's not going to be logical. They're going to think about one piece and then another piece. They'll put them together, but there won't be logic. When they get to be 7, 8, and 9, they will start making little movies, but they won't be able to think about the concepts that lead to war and a lot of the bigger pieces, and they'll make mistakes and won't see the logic of their errors. When they get older, they'll begin to think more of the realities and the implications, but then they're still more egocentric than adults, and they'll think a lot about what it means for them. That's when they'll think more realistically how their parent may be endangered if they're in the military.
A child of 12 can seem quite young, but when that child's 18, he or she could join the military. He or she can vote for the leaders who make decisions. Teaching our children in age-appropriate ways about war is treating them like the future adults they will become.
Peace building with children starts and building the foundations as they get older and they have conflicts. You can start kind of bridging the gap between the things happening in the world around them and what's happening and what they learned about peace building in their own lives. Finding concrete things children can do at their level of thinking and development is another way that we can help them begin to think about how they can have an effect on their world.
In our filming in Indiana, for example, we brought together children with no experience of the military with children who had a parent who'd been at war. And it was very beautiful to see the children talking with each other in such respectful, intelligent and curious ways. And the children with no experience of the military wanted to learn from the children who had a parent who'd been at war. What's it like for you to have your parent be a soldier? And what's it like for you when your parent's gone for months at a time and is in danger? Do you think about the danger?
Between, say, 10, 11, 12, they now are able to think of someone else's point of view, begin to think, gee, so that's what it's like. Well, how would I feel if that was me? So it's a perfect age for them to begin to think about, well, what's it like for him or her to have his mom or dad go away? What's it been like for them to go off and fight and for them to worry? I've thought about what it's like to be a soldier, but my mom and dad are here. I don't have to worry about them.
I had one child who said, you know, when I see on television the returning soldier coming into the kindergarten class and surprising his daughter, I wonder what happens after that. What's it like when your parent comes home and you're so happy and things have changed?
One thing that's important to think about in terms of how both military children and non-military children think about war and what's going on is it can be very scary. One of the things that's most important for children's optimal development to occur is for them to feel safe. And for the adults who are with them to understand when they're scared, for the kids to feel safe, to let them know when they're scared, so that adults can do things, not to necessarily make things perfect, but so you're really scared to go to sleep right now because Dad got really mad at you this afternoon. And, you know, maybe a PTSD situation when he wouldn't have gotten mad ordinarily. And he said he was sorry, but it was kind of scary. Well, let's think what we can do to help you feel better so you can go to sleep. Okay, so you want an extra cupcake. It may be as simple as that. It may be you want an extra hug from Dad before you go to sleep. It may be you want to write something down, you know, in your diary. You want to write a little letter to Dad to let him know you were really upset. You know, help kids kind of work it out in ways where they feel like they can have a little bit of control. Having those kinds of rituals and routines that help kids feel safe and secure can be really important when they're going through the kinds of stress that leads to reunification, or a child who's heard about something about war that makes them scared. Similarly, saying, Mom and Dad are not going to go. You know, we're here, we're going to be with you now. So we don't know what kinds of fears kids might develop, but that sense of safety is something we can do. And that's true for what schools can do as well. Schools have not been involved the way they should. After 9/11, school, you know, where the whole society was so involved and, you know, children couldn't avoid it and school was in session when it happened, schools did pay more attention. But with something like this war that's gone on and on and on and on, schools have all kinds of demands in terms of what they're supposed to teach. And so there's less and less time to deal with the real world things that are going on around children.
I've had conversations through this project with people who were children of Vietnam veterans and World War II veterans. And it's similar in that when the dad, in that case, came home from war, often really didn't talk about it as a family. And there were so many traumatic feelings that never, as a child, did that person get to express. And there was no support for the child because people just assumed life goes on when the soldier comes home.
What is it like for the country to have all these families affected, all these citizens affected, all these children affected? Similarly, when someone comes back, you know, when they kind of look around and think, well, no one seems to be paying attention. Look what I've just been through. It's been, you know, it's different than anything else in my life. It's going to be with me forever. It's going to be hard to work it through, deal with it. What am I going to do? You know, my kids don't know me. My spouse doesn't seem to know me. It's going to take a while till I have a life again. And no one around seems to know anything's going on. The way, as a society, we've been at war all these years, I think we need to reflect on it.
So I've learned from you, Diane, that really every child is going to have some ideas about war. Where do they get most of their ideas of war from?
Children see a great deal of war and conflict and violence in entertainment media. They see TV shows, they see movies, they play video games and computer games. There's much, much, much violence that's fun, that's entertaining, that they learn to say, oh, nobody really gets hurt. And then they hear the news, and some kids bring what they've learned in entertainment violence to interpret the news. They'll get confused, especially when they're young, about what's pretend, what's real. But the fact is, that's where children learn more about war and conflict than anywhere else. And so when we talk to them, we have to realize that sometimes it's been glorified. When children bring up issues of violence, when they ask questions about war, we need to say, well, what have you heard? Well, what do you know? And if they say, well, in this movie, they did this when it happened, say, well, so do you think it's like that in real life? What do you think would happen in real life? Well, you know, in real life, sometimes people really can get hurt and they can't just get up. And you may want to stop there and see how the child reacts. And the child says, oh, really? I never knew that. And you may just want to stop there. We need to be careful that we don't just try to give kids the right answers, at whatever age they are. We need to be sure. We want to complicate their thinking a little bit. We want to give them a little information that helps them begin to understand the reality. But it's not like we want to just simplify the right answer and give it to them the way we understand it, because that is not going to be how they're going to work out real meanings and real understandings. The more interesting conversations you can have, the more you start having this give and take, the more the child feels safe saying stupid things even. Only with you as the parent, because they feel like you've built up that trust, that sense of safety. The more they'll come to you when something really bad happens or something really serious happens, not just about war necessarily, but in other parts of their lives too. I mean, many of the things we're talking about now are part of building a connected relationship that's really crucial for dealing with issues related to war and helping kids deal with scary, violent things they hear about in terms of war. But it's also a very powerful parenting tool for helping kids as they get older and they can start doing risk-taking and things to be connected as well.
It's certainly a goal of this project to create a safe space, a huge safe space for all of us, parents, children, sisters, brothers, grandfathers, soldiers, veterans, to be able to talk about the complex issues of war. So often we oversimplify it or trivialize it, and we don't make it human and real and the incredibly serious subject it should be for all of us. And what we're trying to do is invite everyone into that conversation, that even if you haven't been to war, You have a right to talk about it, and you have a need to talk about it with the children in our lives and model good conversation skills. And I think you've shown us a number of ways to do that by really just being very present with the child. Whatever she or he might be thinking, hear it. Let them talk about it. Their ideas may be odd or skewed or very immature, but they're their ideas, and they need to be able to build on that.
One of the things that's really, really important about the conversation that the children you filmed have is that it models that kind of safe conversation where the kids feel safe asking their real questions, the kids feel safe giving their answers based on their experience, and it's not scripted, and it's not like they're right answers. It's a real honest interaction between the two groups of children. And I think probably for both groups, it's life-changing because they probably haven't had such conversations like that before. That kind of safe turf is so important, and it's really modeled so perfectly in what you did, Susan.
And Diane Levin, I thank you so much for your insights, for your understanding of this issue, and for working with us on this project. Thank you.
Thank you.